It's 6:40, and we're going to start with a public hearing to consider the reauthorization and 5-year plan of the Westchester Business Improvement District Authority.
Good evening, members of council. My name is Mark Thompson. I'm the counsel for the Business Improvement District. We're here for the reauthorization of the district's 5-year plan. Last time this happened was 2020, and it's required under the Neighborhood Improvement District Act that reauthorization take place every 5 years. It is a public hearing. We did actually place a public notice for tonight's hearing. It's part of a 2-step process for the reauthorization of a 5-year plan. The plan was sent to all the individual property owners that are going to be subject to it, and they were given a copy of that plan at least 30 days before tonight's hearing. They'll be given an opportunity along with council to provide comment to that plan here tonight at this public hearing. And then assuming council wants to move forward with the plan as it's drafted now in preliminary form, then you'll take a vote and you'll start what's a 45-day process whereby those individual property owners will be given an opportunity to lodge objections with the borough if they have objections with what would be termed to be the final plan. So after that period of time, then it will be back before Borough Council for consideration of an ordinance to enact the final plan. So we're here tonight. I'm here with John O'Brien, the Executive Director of the Business Improvement District. And we're here to, I think John has a presentation. There are some changes to the 5-year plan from the last one, but he will be available to answer questions and obviously take comment from members of the public and individuals that are subject to the plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. As Mark mentioned, my name is John O'Brien. I am the Executive Director for the Westchester Business Improvement District. It is nice to do this in person. The last time we were here with then President Gailey was on WebEx because we were in the throngs of COVID, and the town and the Business Improvement District has come a long way since then. So I want to again thank the mayor and the council for the opportunity to present this plan. This is a result of 2 years of hard work, of surveys, of in-person conversations, of talking to residents, to business owners, to property owners, both in the current district, in the expansion district, to gain feedback on where they want to see the core of the downtown go in the next 5 years. Mark already kind of outlined the plan process and how that works with the objections, but the plan before you, and for members of the public, there are also paper copies back by on the desk. The plan before you is a comprehensive overview of the organization's successes, our strategic plan for the future, and the map of the proposed district, our proposed millage rate, which we anticipate to stay the same, and our anticipated finances for 2026. As I mentioned, this plan would continue to hold our millage rate steady at 3 mills, and would continue what we call the residential discount program. The residential discount program means that we only assess on the commercial square footage in a building. So if a property owner in a benefited property has a residential on the second or third floor in a mixed use, we are only going to assess them on that first floor if that is the commercial square footage. Our goal is always to be good stewards of the funds entrusted to us, and that is why we have focused on growing our revenues through expanded sponsorships, event income, and advertising income. I know there has been some concern raised about keeping the rate steady at 3 mills over the next 5 years. The last time, as the plan does mention, that we raised the rate was in 2015. So we have been able to be good stewards and keep our financial house in order for these many years, and we anticipate that going the next 5 years. Should there be a need for an additional revenue outside of what we're anticipating if something were to come up, this plan does not lock us in stone, in that we are able to go through an amendment process, which would look very similar to what we're doing here tonight. We would propose an amendment. We would send it out to all the businesses and the commercial property owners, saying what we would want to increase the millage rate to in the following year, the Council would have a public hearing to discuss this issue. There would still be another 45-day window in which the commercial property owners would be able to lodge an objection. And if 40% or more of them have an objection to it, we wouldn't be able to go forward. So there is a lot of control for the property owners on this proposal, but it also doesn't lock us in that we have to wait till 2030 if something were to change. I just wanted to kind of briefly go over the goals of the organization. So one of our goals are to recruit new businesses to come to town, support existing businesses, increase the foot traffic, serve as an advocate for our small businesses between local, state, and federal governments, and to help beautify our town. Since 2020, 93 businesses have opened in downtown Westchester and 44 have closed. This is a net of 49 new businesses. At the end of 2020, our commercial vacancy rate was 9.5%. Today, in the business district, that is 3.14%, a decrease of 67%. We have focused on partnering with realtors, SCORE of Chester County, the Greater Westchester Chamber of Commerce, the County Chamber of Commerce or Business and Industry, the Chester County Economic Development Council to help drive more businesses into town and to also help make sure that the businesses that set up here, they see us in 5, 10, 15 years from now. Our big focus is always making sure the businesses view this as a community that they're coming into and that they're not just a number, they're part of the fabric of our town. We have rebranded Westchester as a place to stay, shop, dine, and explore, and focus on hyper-targeting consumers in the greater Westchester area who are regularly engaged with our small business community. Since our last reauthorization, we have greatly grown our social media presence across Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and that is all to help amplify what's going on in town, the events that we have in town, and the individual small businesses. If you compare, for instance, our social media presence to larger organizations that are bids in King of Prussia or Manayunk, where King of Prussia would have a budget of $10 million, Manayunk has close to $2 million, we're well outperforming them. So we like to think of ourselves as small but mighty. Since our last reauthorization, we have expanded the number of events that we host in downtown. We have launched Restaurant Week. We have taken over the Gallery Walk. We've worked with the Borough on the Gay Street Open Air Market. We started Westchester Taps, which is tonight, Yoga in the Street, World Music Day, Oktoberfest, a Turkey Trot, expanded our efforts on Small Business Weekend, and created the Chris Kendall Market. We've also worked on enhancing First Fridays by creating events that are tailored to that, such as an adult Easter egg hunt, a summer concert series, bringing in the Budweiser Clydesdales, and having events such as Irish step dancers. To help keep our town beautiful, we pay and maintain many of the planters and garden beds that you see throughout the business district. In 2022, we partnered with the Westchester Green Team to help create the Chestnut Street Community Pollinator Garden. That garden the garage serves as a jumping off point for many people who come to visit the town, and we wanted to have them be blown away the moment they leave the car. In 2023, we helped implement the mural you see on the side of Masters Baker. Since 2020, downtown Westchester has partnered with the Greater Westchester Chamber of Commerce to light up the town with festive decorations during the holiday season. To help keep the town clean, we deploy a robust program that focuses on picking up litter from sidewalks, cleaning graffiti, watering our gardens, weeding our flower beds and sidewalks, and washing the benches and trash cans. Since 2021, we've managed over 4,000 hours of community service to help accomplish this. In 2024, we hired a part-time associate who continues to be with us to focus on keeping our town clean. Over the next 5 years, we want to focus on keeping our vacancy rate low. And in the expansion area, we want to make sure we help recruit new businesses to the currently available properties. We want to particularly focus on recruiting retail and professional service businesses into Westchester. We want to ensure that the events that we offer help drive economic activity to our small businesses. We also want to find ways to bring these events to the expanded area or find new events that would complement the expanded area. We also want to find ways to bring more foot traffic into town during the slower months of January, February, July, and August. Ideas include a summer retail market, an ice festival, and a car show. We also want to expand the use of data tools like Placer AI, which allows us to geofence an area and better understand the customers coming to Westchester. We can also use this tool for individual small businesses to help them better understand their marketing needs or calculate how many people are coming in and out of a special event. Finally, we want to make sure that Westchester is a beautiful place to work or visit. We want to grow the trash mitigation programs currently implemented by the bid with a focus on weekend litter removal from the sidewalks. We hope to add and support public art projects in the business district. We want to implement improvements such as wider sidewalks, additional benches, better lighting, green spaces, additional trash cans, attractive landscaping to help the area be more pedestrian friendly. That is especially true in the expansion areas that we're seeking to move into. We also want to work on issues addressing traffic flow, parking shortages, and public transportation options. This means exploring bike lanes, pedestrian-only zones, or expanded transit routes to make the area more accessible. One of the aspects of this plan includes adding John O'Green Park into the district, which allow us to help with adding or applying for grants to hold events there to work on cleaning up the park. The park is a part of the district, but it's referred to as not a benefited property, so there's not a charge for that parcel. Making investment in the business improvement district is making investment in the Westchester community. The bid not only helps support our small businesses, but it also helps make Westchester an attractive place to work and live. We're deeply grateful for the bonds we have been able to forge with the Borough Council, with the mayor, commercial property owners, small business operators, and the residents of Westchester Borough. We hope to continue the good work for an additional 5 years with your support. And as Mark mentioned, this is not the end of the journey. We're happy to answer any questions, but I'm also an open book if there are individual property owners, members of council, members of the community who afterwards want to meet with me one-on-one to get a fuller idea of what the organization is and how we can help. So I thank you for that consideration. That would conclude my remarks.
Thank you, John. Comments, questions?
I have a couple. So one thing, thank you, because you addressed the concern I brought up at probably the wrong time in another meeting about the village. And knowing that there, my understanding was that you lock it in for the 5 years, but knowing that if there is a point where you need the additional money, you have that process in place, that helped me. So thank you. Oh, the other question I had was regards to everyone that you sent this to. I'm assuming that it included all the properties that you want to expand into?
Yes. So as per the NIDMA law, we are required to not only have a physical map within the plan, which is on page 7, but we are also required to list every property that is in both the existing and the expansion area, and that starts on page 19 and lists both the parcel number and the street address.
And they all got?
Everyone did receive that, yes.
Comments or questions? None? Public comments, questions?
Hi, Lisa Kearns, West Biddle Street. Just a quick question, and perhaps I'm reading it wrong, about the revenues and the expenses. I'm just looking at it for the first time. So 44% goes to pay for your own personnel? Personnel with and then 16%. So only like little under 38% actually go into providing services. That's what I had a question about.
Sure.
Thanks.
Happy to answer that. So, I mean, as with any organization, whether it's the borough, a school district, a business, personnel is always going to be your smallest expense, or your largest expense. Our personnel are what drive and create the events. So that is kind of one of the ways. Without having the personnel, we are a small staff. We have 3 members on staff, including myself. So we have sought to keep that in line. If I would put us up against other organizations and saying that 44% for personnel costs is on the lower end of what other organizations might, properly record as their personnel costs. But yes, we're not looking to hide that. That is, to run an organization, we need people to do it.
Thank you.
I was unclear. I was more interested in the 38%. That's all that the services that you.
So the cleaning green piece, that is the beautification effort. So that's our contract with a landscaper to maintain the gardens. That is for where our part-time associate that we are able to fund, that's cleaning green. Marketing would be marketing and events. That is the 33.7%. And so if you were to look at our budget from 2020 to today, marketing and cleaning green have been the biggest investment. We have, by a percentile that we have increased. And we've been able to do that by focusing on partnerships with, event income, sponsorship opportunities. All of that is used to reinvest into events. Generally, most of the events that I mentioned, we don't seek to make a profit. The goal there is to cover our costs and to drive foot traffic into downtown. And we constantly always evaluate those events. We're even having an events and programs committee tomorrow at noon to talk about the upcoming holiday season and what we want to invest in there.
Thank you. Any other public comments, questions?
My name is Robert Hall. I'm president of Francis A. Hall, Inc. We own a property at 116 South High Street, which is across from the Methodist Church. The reason I bring that up is we would be added as a new unit to the proposed expansion. My question, Mr. O'Brien, who's by the way been very receptive, I've appreciated talking to him and emailing, is how many units currently are assessed and how many will be expanded to?
Sure. Pull up my sheet on that. So we refer to them as parcels. So individual parcels. The current district has 263 parcels, and the expanded area we would be adding 85 new parcels into the district. And just another quick note, as far as the voting process works, the vote is per parcel. So if you happen to be a property owner that owns 2, 3 going upward, that is the number of votes that you essentially have as far as the reauthorization process is concerned.
Thank you. Can you explain the reason why you're expanding the area? Your budget from 2024 to 2025 seemed to jump. A 20% fair number?
Yeah, so we started to, in terms of the accounting, especially for the event income that we were taking in, prior to 2024, we were just kind of listing event income as profit. So like when we did an event, if it made a little money, so we brought all the event income as well as all the event expense in there. So that's why the budget looks different if you were to look at like 2023 to 2024 or 2024 to 2025. We're always just trying to be more transparent and honest, and that's one of the changes we decided to do. One of the decision has been, ever since I started in this organization, I've heard from property owners, I've heard from individual businesses outside the district, I've heard from former members of Borough Council about, why aren't we helping this business or, this area of town? And because of the way we're set up with these very specific borders, we're kind of held to that. When we started this process, it was really to more perfectly overlay the town center zoning map. It doesn't perfectly overlay that. There's some little bits here and there. And then as we started that conversation, so along South High Street, it goes perfectly with the town center map. On East Gay Street and East Market Street, it goes a little bit into the commercial services district, as we've had conversations with different property owners who have seemed interested in being part of the organization. And this is also, especially on East Market Street and East Gay Street, we want, and I know the borough is redoing their comp plan, but we want to be helpful and kind of, the comp plan talks a lot about revitalizing those two areas, making them more pedestrian friendly. A big priority for me would be on East Market Street is traffic calming measures. The current way Market Street sets up, it basically cuts off the second ward and not feeling like it's connected and there's walkability into the downtown. We want to help kind of advocate for that. There's ideas of expanding the sidewalks on East Market Street. On Westgate or Eastgate Street, we have the same issues with, traffic accidents and things like that. On South High Street, the borough has done a lot with the new expansions of the sidewalks. We want to help beautify that area, trash mitigation. There's no big bellies basically past 7-Eleven. And college students, that's a big issue as people walk down those areas. So we want to make sure that people are safe, but it's also litter free. And we also want to help market those businesses to make sure that they don't feel like they're forgotten or they're not part of the town.
Thank you. Additional comments, questions?
Indulge myself too much. The other thing that I find fascinating, I mean, we talk about direct downtown help, which I think BID has done a great job. Absolutely. I was born in this town, grew up in this town, so I've seen it go through some interesting evolutions. I think the BID deserves a lot of praise. Where my building is located, there is no habitational portion. So the entire assessment on there would be subject to the real estate parcel value that's on the tax register. I find it fascinating that you carve out those that have habitational because, again, you assume they're coming into Westchester to rent, to live, because they're attracted to it. But those property owners get a bit of relief because of that little wrinkle that's in there. So I'd have 100%. And where I am in a dilemma, to be very honest with you, is who's going to pay for it. I mean, I'm directly going to be responsible. I know that if I don't pay for it, correct me, there'd be a lien eventually put on the property. It's basically assessments like a tax when you look at it. But I'm looking at my tenant. I'm saying, well, someone has to pay for this. Do I pass it on to my tenants in the form of higher rent? I'm having trouble with because she's been a great tenant for about 8 years, and I hope she stays there. So that's my biggest concern. I hope you weigh into that. I think you've done a great job here in this town, and I applaud it. And I'm very proud to have a property. I have more than one in the borough as it is. Thank you.
Sure. So to kind of go with what the residential discount program, so that has been since the inception of the organization in 2000. And back then it was a bit of a compromise situation in terms of founding the organization. The issue with us getting rid of that is it creates just a lot of winners and losers throughout town. And it becomes kind of an unwieldy mess to really kind of get rid of that. I understand the piece, and I've worked with I believe Escape Westchester is your tenant, and they've worked with us before. They've tried to be part of, and we've actually did let them be part of our holiday window decorating contest to help give them views. So our commitment is to move forward. The original concept was a lot of our services are very detail oriented to the individual commercial businesses. And that's why it's always existed. I will say I've always believed that there is some slight benefit to the residential side, both for residents' property values, because the reason that people are moving to Westchester is they love the walkability into the downtown, to the restaurants, to the retail, et cetera. But that's also why people are renting here as well. So there is an ancillary benefit there. But the program was designed simply because the services we provide are mainly tailored to commercial folks.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. O'Brien, the average assessment in dollars per year as an average,
Sure.
have one?
Yeah. So for the current district, the average is $1,100. The median is $390. That's because there's going to be some very large parcels, the new hotel, 10 North High Street, the Farmers and Mechanics building, which they're going to throw the averages. So that's why I wanted to include the median for you as well. For the expansion area, the average would be $223 and the median would be $373.65. And that's on an annual basis. And so the way we bill out, it's in the beginning of June. We operate on a calendar year, but we kind of bill out on a fiscal year. So we bill out in June. So no one in the expansion area would see a bill till June of 2026. And they have 3 months to pay that at the end of August is when that concludes.
Thank you very much. The fee to me seems to be extremely fair. Thank you.
Additional comments, questions?
I am the council person who sits on the bid, and I just want to say that they do a phenomenal job with very little funds. I have been involved with other boroughs and other bids, and they either have massive funding or higher rates and multiple people far beyond what we have, and we do more than them. So they do an amazing job for very little money, and I am so grateful that our borough has this. So that's my thought.
Thank you. So would it be appropriate at this point then for someone to make a motion to approve the preliminary plan? Okay,
So moved.
Second.
okay. Mr. Messer, please call the question.
I still have questions. Oh, sorry. That's okay.
Invited.
My name is Diane Davis. My husband and I own a business on Gay Street that would be involved in the expansion. It's strictly a commercial business. We own the property as well as operate our business from that location. I'm curious, in the expansion, you said there's 85 businesses included or 85 parcels. Of those 85, how many are either pure residential, going to be discounted residential, or be assessed 100% of the fee?
So let's see if I can give you that exact. I'd have to pull that exact data for you, and I'd be happy to follow up with you afterwards on that. Within the expansion district, if we didn't have the residential discount program, my chart's not broken out like that, so I don't want to give false information, but I can easily get that for you. I just, my chart's not built out like that. I can, after this meeting, I can pull it up on my laptop and figure that out for you.
My reason for asking that question is that knowing the properties that surround us and having investigated those that I see on the map that are parcels that would be affected, when I then look at the mission for the bid, where you're bringing, you're trying to increase foot traffic, where we're actually a business that does not encourage foot traffic to our location. It's rare that we get someone that walks in. We, again, simply operate our business and day to day are pretty much out of the office. We just have the structure there as an address for operational purposes. When I look at those costs and then the budget for your expanding green, cleaning green considerably, and you say that that is really, a lot of that is to go towards this expanded district. If we're not going to get the benefit of the events that typically take place from Matlack Street to Wayne Street in the immediate downtown borough, how realistic is it that you're going to be able to expand events without creating traffic nightmares in the borough itself that we would get the benefit of other than walk-in traffic? I'm trying to understand that.
So for a business like yours, there's a couple things, whether it's our business spotlight program, our listing on Register, it's to get people to know that you're there, to drive more eyeballs so that if people are looking, our big thing is always encouraging people to shop local, but it's not just saying shop local, give them resources. So if they're looking for window siding, to know that your business exists, then know it's a, been in Westchester, it's a family-owned business. And we do have a variety of different ways that we highlight your individual businesses for that. As I mentioned with our new tools with Placer AI, if you're trying to better understand your market segment, about who's in the area, what zip codes to target, those are all free resources that we provide. On the event side of things, our hope is to tailor specific events that are set up more in footprints within the expansion area. The cleaning green efforts is really to help also increase property values down that way, because not that we want to see you here 20 years from now. I did meet your son. We want to make sure he takes over and stays down here with us, but to make sure that the building's value continues to grow. to make sure that it's a clean area and that it feels like it's buying, part of the rest of the town and then it's not cut off separately. On East Gay Street, especially, I mentioned, we have had a series of different traffic issues that I think we need to look at ways to make the town more calming. And even at events where, our goal with foot traffic too is not purely for somebody to necessarily go in and buy that service at that day. It's to walk by and say that they haven't seen your business before and that they're going to come back later. It's to create the eyeballs as well. And that's a big focus too, is not just making sure that somebody's buying like, a beverage that day at a local coffee house. Well, that's part of it, but it's really just to make sure that there's eyeballs and awareness of the businesses that exist outside of our core district.
Right, I meant it in general, not specific to our business, but just in knowing the businesses that are in the parcels that are included in the expansion. It seems a lot of them are residential or partially residential.
Yeah, so if they're residential, they are what we term as a non-benefited property. And the way we determine benefited and non-benefited is through land use codes. So anybody that has basically a C code attached to their building is going to be a benefited property, as well as R60 and R61. It delineates that in the plan as well. So specifically along East Gay Street and East Market Street, there will be some parcels which are pure residential, usually coded as R10, not a ton, but a couple, or R40. While they are in town or as they will be in the district, they won't be an assessed property. And that is just the way the district has always kind of been. It's a newer phenomenon for us. We don't really have that issue within the current district. We don't have any real parcels that are coded as R10 that are purely just residential. In a couple spaces in the expansion area, that'll be true. Most of them will be benefited properties, but there are going to be a couple.
All right.
Mhm.
I have a question now that, are you done your questions? I don't want to, okay. Now, but two business owners that are in the expanded area, you guys asked very good questions. So thank you for the questions. And you also had very good answers, I think. So thank you for your answers. My question then kind of led to your board of directors, right? Like, are you going to expand that? Like, what's the plan for your board of directors? Because you need people like these.
Yeah, our
guys.
plan is to add, we can't add people in the expansion area until we are fully reauthorized in the next calendar year. We have obviously a natural cycle of different members that will term out, and we will look for expansion members to be part of that, to make sure that their voice is heard. Part of the unique thing about our organization is that we go through this reauthorization every 5 years. So our property owners and business owners have a mechanism to hold our feet to the fire if we're not accountable to their needs. And they have, commercial property owners have a vote basically to say yay or nay to the organization. So that's what keeps, unlike really any other quasi-government entity, this has more public participation than most in just the existence of the organization.
So if all this process goes through, just to make sure that my brain is clear, do you just add to board of directors or do you have to wait for people to roll off? Or
So we have them, there will be some that will roll off at the end of this year. But then I believe we have authorization to add within internally council's approval. Council will appoint anybody. The board internally doesn't. We make a recommendation to council and council officially appoints them. But there is a mechanism which we could add board members. We've liked to keep it around the 15 member spot because, just as my professional experience, you get boards that are too big, then you get individuals who don't show up, who don't participate. Our big thing with our board, it's not a financial commitment. It's really giving us advice and consent on the direction of the organization. So we'll actively look for members in the expansion area, especially members who are going to be engaged and give us their unfiltered opinions. That's when I meet with new people, that is the first thing I tell them is, I don't want to hear, oh, you're doing just a great job. I want to hear what's going wrong because we can't address it if we don't know.
I encourage you to make sure you don't somehow block them out and that they get their representation for sure.
Mr. O'Brien, with the expansion of the footprint of the bid, The, the gateway to Westchester will be changing dramatically, probably in the next 5 years.
Yes.
On East Gay Street and East Market Street with the addition of the 7-story building there. So the foot traffic and the participation of the local businesses down that area will be, I believe, fully available to the 700 residents that are going to live in that building. So the walkability.
Yeah, I think those areas, both South High Street, East Market Street, East Gay Street, have a lot of upcoming potential when these new developments come on board. I know there's various different views on the development of town and making, we want to partner with council and make sure it's smart. I will say from a small business perspective, our residents and people in the greater Westchester area really enjoy our restaurant scene, our retail scene, but we are becoming at a capacity with the number of folks that we have in that greater Westchester area who will regularly engage with our businesses. And it starts to competition starts to just put pressure with, only so many dollars and customers available. I do think that'll be a net positive for our business community. Obviously, it needs to be done in a managed and smart way. And, I've met with Smart Growth before. I've met with the Planning Commission on different issues. Sometimes you've agreed with some of the things I've advocated for. Sometimes you haven't. My job is always just to kind of put forward the perspective of the commercial business owner and make sure their voice is heard in that process.
Thank you.
My motion still stands, Mr. McCoy.
Second?
Second still
Okay,
stands.
Mr. Metric, please call the question.
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yeah.
Ms. Vaccaro?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Ms. Shimoni?
Yes.
And Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Thanks. Just one thing I wanted to mention. So out of courtesy, we are also going to be mailing this once again to all the commercial property owners with the notice on how they can object in writing to the borough manager, whether you want to drop it off at Borough Hall or mail it in. Our interpretation with that 45-day window starting tomorrow is that it would need to be in by August 30th. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that as well.
Thank you. All right, the hearing is adjourned at 7:15.
Did you get that note?
Okay, good evening again. We're going to call the Borough Council meeting to order for July 16, 2025. Second order of business, Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Travis.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have one announcement that we held a executive session this evening to discuss personnel matters. Next, are there any comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items that are not on the agenda?
Tom Walsh, Chair of the Westchester Historical Commission. Just reminding you that Lafayette is coming to Westchester. 200 years ago today, he left Princeton and headed to Philadelphia, where he will remain until the 24th. He'll head to Wilmington on the 25th And on the afternoon of the 26th, he would have arrived in Westchester 200 years ago and stay for the night and then proceed to Lancaster the next day. We've been working with recreation and media, and we are promoting wherever we can. I would ask council if they can attend or remind their friends and relatives. I'd like to give you one of the at 12 noon, that's the walk. We have the adult. That's your here. We'd like some of you to come and do a mock toast. The script is already written down, it's 1825, and recorded in 1885, and recorded on 1881 at Beauty Code. So, as again, I just wanted to call your attention. Any help you can give us with your friends and relatives, get them to sign up on the borough's website. And I thank you and have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next, comments by the Borough Council and Mayor, starting.
Can we just clarification, Mr. Walsh? The memo says Tuesday, July 26th.
What?
Your memo says Tuesday, July 26th.
Oh, okay.
That's a Saturday.
Saturday, yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Okay. So it's definitely on Saturday.
It's Saturday.
Okay.
The 26th.
Thank you.
And I went through that a half a dozen times and copied one thing, corrected one thing after another, and so on. So that's where I'm going now. Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification, everyone. So we'll move on to comments by council and mayor. Mr. Carroll.
I wanted to remind everyone about Up on the Roof, which is September 13th, 5 to 8:30. It's a fundraiser that benefits our borough and beautification and maintenance. And it's one of the most fun events that we have in the borough. So get a ticket, join us. It's going to be fun.
Thank you. Mr. McGinnis.
Yes, I wanted to give a shout out to our first responders, in particular, the Westchester Fire Department. There was a fire at Jake's Bar on July the 11th. They came to the rescue for that fire, saved about 3 women's lives, as well as the Westchester Police Department. And then a couple days later, on July the 11th, the Centennial Drive in East Bradford, again, another early morning fire. And as well as the surrounding fire departments that helped put out that fire. So again, thank you, Westchester Fire Department.
Thank you. Mr. Travis.
Mine's a little different. I wanted to give a shout out to one of our neighboring boroughs, Phoenixville, for making the travel and leisure best U.S. town to live in, #1. So not just the top 10, but the best. And when asked in an interview, and this was actually, did you guys, any of you read this? I read it. You'd read it. ABC News covered it, but it was in Travel and Leisure magazine. And the #1 reason cited is that the borough and the borough management really focused on the quality of life issues in the town. So it's basically a measure of what they've done over time to really turn the town around. So if anything, it just sends us a message to, if we want to be on a list like this, and we know we have some, and even the mayor brought one up just a couple weeks ago about some of the blighted properties we have here that have grown weeds that are 10 feet tall. So if we can just kind of keep that in mind and think of Phoenixville and think of Westchester and where we could be aspirationally, maybe on one of these lists the next coming years or next year, hopefully. So that was my comment.
Thank you. We'll kick their butts. Ms. Dorsey.
I'm next. Did you say Ms. Dorsey?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking at me, but I didn't hear you say it. Thank you. Last month, I think I gave a shout out to parking and building and housing and in particular Ramsey Reiner and the work that she's been doing. But I also want to shout out Public Works, and I see the Don and Don team in the back of the room, and thank them and acknowledge the work around the paving and the stormwater management and all of the changes that are happening throughout the borough. I have noticed and appreciate the paving, particularly in the alleys, which I think are neglected for a long time. I just want to acknowledge the work that you do. And I also don't want to forget Gil and our trash men that I know that for me, I live in Ward 7, obviously. And there was a missed pickup maybe 2 weeks ago. And I cannot tell you how many phone calls and emails I got around what happened to the trash men? Where were they? Why didn't they pick up the trash? Are they coming tomorrow? Are they okay? So I, again, just want to acknowledge the Public Works team and the work that you do to really improve the quality of life, Mr. Travis, here in the borough.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn.
Greetings from the sweetest ward in the borough, the 6th Ward. The new ice cream store is open on Church Street. The man uses very few words. He owns pizza. He owns cheesesteaks. And now he's opened ice cream. So I'm going to have to stop spending $16 for a quart of Kilwins every Friday and start bringing home some ice cream from the ice cream store. And secondly, the Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Foundation, they're looking for registrations. And this, Ms. Kearns, I think she needs to pay close attention to this. They're looking for adults to have a trike race on August the 8th. You can ride your unicycle, yeah, at 3:30 to 6 p.m. I'm sure along the route there's going to be many libations because the three-wheelers are going to be ready for you to pedal up down the street. And of course, it's in the 6th Ward from Church to Darlington. And I'm sure the nuns will enjoy seeing the tricycles driving by the convent out there. But have a safe August as we get into the dog days of summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Simone.
I am trying to rally some family members to do this tricycle race. I'm trying. I hope to be out there. But that is not what I wanted to talk about. Was 4th of July week. I had a little extra time on the 3rd, and I started putzing around town. And I was just walking down, and with the flags that are out there, we don't have good signage yet. We need good signage. But I saw the flags for the Chester County Visitor Center. And I'm like, let me see what's in there. I mean, I was born and raised here. I know a lot about Westchester and Chester County, but I'll check it out and see what's going on. Boy, what a wealth of knowledge. If you haven't been there, go into the Chester County Visitor Center. They have this map with QR codes with like all sorts of businesses, wineries and distilleries and gardens and you can just go in there, and there's just so much information. The woman that was working there, she gave me information. We were going to go bike riding on Chester Valley. She's like, here's a map to the Chester Valley Trail. And she's like, here's a list of all sorts of other biking trails that you can go on and around town or around here and everything. What? Quality of life. Yes. So anyway, even if you think you know what's in Chester County, I do recommend you go into the visitor center and look around. And there was art, there was local art. I mean, there's all sorts of really good stuff in there. So check it out. And we need to approve a better sign or get a better sign up there so more people know it's there. So.
Thank you. Mayor.
So I just want to remind everyone, National Night Out, which is an annual event done by the police, the ambulances, and the fire departments across the country, is being held August the 5th from 6 to 8 right in Westchester at Henderson High School. It's a fun night. It's a free night. So you can bring your children or your grandchildren and, You know, they have bouncing houses and lots of other things and wonderful vendors and trucks you can get on and touch and all of that. So it's a free event, August 5th, 6 to 8 at Henderson High School National Night Out. So please come.
Thank you. Well, since Phoenixville and Night Out were both taken, I will say one thing. I was really impressed with the Good Fellowship talked about their program in transporting mental health patients to the behavioral health at Haven. What is Safe Haven? Whatever it's called. And I think that's a great thing. Apparently, it's the first, at least locally. So I'm really proud of them for that. Second, I was going to say, last evening we had 4 terrific candidates for Planning Commission, and we really appreciate people that give up their time and efforts and energy to be a part of the borough and be on boards, commissions, council, and I appreciate it and hope that we're a model of how behavior is at some of those meetings and that we all display some decorum. So thank you. Next, we will move on to reports and presentations, starting with the 2024 audit. Dale Umbenauer from Mali.
Hi, so I'm Chris Ratnardo from Mali. I'm the audit manager there. Dale couldn't make it tonight, but I don't know, did we want to put the presentation up? I have like an 8-slide PowerPoint that we'll go through quickly. So we're going to go over the results of the 2024 audit. Our objective for the audit is to plan, perform an audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. We did give it an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. That's what you want to see. So I want to thank Barb for doing such a good job again this year. We really appreciate all of her help throughout the audit process. Second side, just some required communications that we're supposed to go over with everyone. So significant accounting policies. There were no transactions lacking authoritative guidance. And there was one new GASB this year, GASB 101 over compensated absences. This really didn't impact the borough's financial statements. How you were previously reporting the compensated absences, we're already following the new standard. So there's really no change. It was mainly just adding payroll tax to the current liability. Significant accounting estimates. These are what we deem to be significant. So the lease receivables and related deferred inflows, the net pension liability and the deferred outflows and inflows, and the OPEB liability we deem to be the most significant. So we do a little more work over these and just make sure they're correct and tied to the actuary reports. We did not have any difficulties or disagreements with management, and Barb always posts all of our audit adjustments. We don't really have many audit adjustments. Some of the adjustments are just normal bookkeeping things that we help with the proprietary funds like the OPEB, pension, and lease entries. We are going to issue a recommendation letter this year. Nothing to be concerned about, just a couple things that we saw throughout our audit procedures that we wanted to make everyone aware about and just give a recommendation to think about in the future years. The first one is just the importance of using authorized vendors. Second one is repaying the due to, due froms. A couple of due to, due froms were the same balance as the previous years, and these really should just be a one-year loan between funds that get repaid. And then when we talked to Bernie during our pre-audit governance call, he just asked Dale to kind of look, give more of a 5-year plan of revenues and expenses and budgeting and see what might need to be raised or expenses to cut. So Dale did go back 10 years, and he's going to give a couple of recommendations which might help out in future budgeting processes. So next slide. Now I'm just going to go over some key financial statement items. Cash for the governmental activities was about 9.3 million and 7.65 million for business type funds. Governmental activities had 8.8 million in investments. Receivables at 3.1 million and business type activities at 2.1 million. Net capital assets didn't really change, about 24 million in 2024 and 26 million For business type activities, the small decrease is mainly just depreciation expense. Unearned revenue was 282,000 for governmental activities and 241 for business type. Long-term debt was 8.2 for governmental activities and 11.6. You'll notice that was also paid down. There was no new debt in the current year. The net pension liability was 2.5 million for governmental activities and 76,000 for business type. And the OPEB liability for the governmental activities was 3.6 million. So the net position for the governmental activities in 2024 was 26 million. You will see that there was a big jump from 2020 to 2024. The main reason for that is in 2022, we had the restatement to true up the due to, due froms. So the governmental activities had about a $7 million due to the proprietary funds, and the proprietary funds had a receivable from the governmental funds. We just forgave those based on our talks with Sean and Barb because they just were never repaid, and that's just what we did in 2022. And then the increase in governmental activities each year is just due to the increase in the net position, and the proprietary funds have been averaging a transfer to the governmental activities about $2 million a year. So the changes in net position, this is just a high level overview. So the governmental activities had a surplus of about 1.8 million, and the business type activities a surplus of 4.1 million. And then you will see that we have transfers of around 2 million from the business type activities to the governmental activities in the past 2 years. The general fund budget analysis, total revenues, actual is about $2 million greater than what was originally budgeted. The main reason for that was just grant income came in much higher than was originally budgeted. And then expenditures were pretty much the same. And then you'll see the net change in fund balance was about 2 million for that. Go to the next one. And then the last slide, just the governmental fund balances. The restricted fund balance is mainly for the stormwater fund. The assigned fund balance of about 11.8 million. Majority of that is all related to capital projects. And then there's an unassigned fund balance of 3.2 million. And that concludes my presentation, unless there's any questions.
I have one question. The note about the authorized vendors, can you explain that to me?
It just came to our, I think the Public Works Department was purchasing salt, I believe, from unauthorized vendors, which obviously you don't want to do. And the internal controls probably don't support that either. So, and especially if you're using grant money or federal money, if you do use an unauthorized vendor and it's caught, they're not going to reimburse you for that expense anyway. And then the borough's stuck paying for it without grant money. So, and there just could be a bunch of problems that can occur when not using authorized vendors, and just from an internal control perspective, it's not good.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I just have one comment. You mentioned about the increase in grant money, and I think something we should be cognizant of all next year is we're probably not going to see anything similar to what we've seen in the past.
Right, especially with the ARPA monies. I think that's
ARPA
gone.
money's not going to be there. There's a lot of federal budget cuts and whatnot. So I think that planning should start to begin now for next year.
And that's what Dale's going to try and highlight in the recommendation letter as well for budgeting and everything.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Public comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, our next presentation is a quarterly update from the Rail Restoration Committee. Jason Levin.
All right, good evening, everyone. Jason Levin, Chair of the Rail Restoration Committee. At the request of council, the committee has put together a quarterly report, and we'll be doing this on a 3-month cadence just to keep everybody up to date on all aspects of what's going on. So this will just be the first installment, and I'll try to be brief and happy to dive into anything. So we'll do a quick overview on just the route. operations plan, what's the equipment that we're planning for, what does the budget look like. We'll look into some updates in the past, try to look back 3 months each time. So I think most folks are familiar with the stations on the route, but just to refresh, we've got the Market Street station at the terminus here in Westchester Borough. There's also a proposed station. Historically, there was a station for Westchester University. Also, there was a station for Westtown and Cheney. There's currently a historic depot at Glen Mills, but that's not proposed to be a station on the commuter service. And then obviously the end of the route would be Wawa connecting to the SEPTA service. So the Westchester Metro would be a shuttle running from the borough to the Wawa station. This is, again, these are some schematics that the committee has put together over time. Just thought it would be instructive to share, but this is one example of the amount of parking we could do on a single level at the Market Street station. I think it's about 82 spaces there in green. Some thoughts about that would, since I know there's drainage and flooding issues in the area, and there's other projects in the works, I know, for flooding. The thought would be to have, pervious surfaces in this parking lot to ensure that there's no additional significant runoff. But yeah, right now, we think this would be a pretty big station on the line. Probably most of the ridership would be driven at this location. So on the opposite end, on the Wawa end of the line, we would build a sort of spur track off of the existing SEPTA system onto a new platform for the Westchester Metro. And then the idea would be to have a pedestrian bridge over Route 1 that takes you in, and this schematic needs to be updated, but it would take you in underneath the platform, and I'll show a picture of where that happens. But basically, it's a 200, 300-foot walk over to the platform. Yeah, so the current Wawa station actually has a tunnel that's already built, and the reason for that was that they wanted to connect to an expansion of the Chester Creek Trail once that makes its way over to Wawa from Lenai. So that tunnel was actually put there. It was in the plans for SEPTA all along, but this would also be the place where our pedestrians could get in and then go up at either an elevator or a ramp to the Wawa platform. And again, the schematic is close but not fully updated because this shows folks going straight across to the platform. But through conversations with SEPTA, they don't want us to do that because there's some issues with, there's a signal post right there, and they don't want to interfere with their operations. So we're going to go down and around is the current plan. And we'll try to get these updated once we can get a designer on board. But basically, this gives you an idea of the connection between the two services. So travel times. So this is our current analysis, just comparing some different scenarios. Obviously, there's a lot of assumptions that you have to make in order to compare different ways of getting around. But these scenarios assume that the rider is basically starting in the center of the borough. And obviously, that's not the case for everyone. There's folks distributed throughout all wards and even beyond the borough. And we can speak to that in further discussions. But assuming you'd start in the center of the borough, you get on the train, it would take, I think, 12 minutes to get to Wawa. We're assuming another 8 minutes of in-between time, and then about 49 minutes on the train to Suburban from Wawa. So that's the first scenario. Second scenario is taking the bus all the way into 69th Street and then getting on the L, same thing to Suburban. And then the next one is taking a bus to Exton and getting on the train there. The next one is driving a personal automobile to Exton, getting on the train there, and then personal automobile to Wawa. And then driving the whole way into Philly. So just a bunch of different ways of cutting it. And again, each time if there's a connection, we're assuming a similar 8-minute waiting period, in between, connection time. So yeah. And yeah, just the fact that, in the past when this service was run to Westchester, shuttles were very common. SEPTA actually ran shuttles. So it's been done before. Okay, so operations. So a lot going on the line potentially, but not never at the same time. So obviously we have the Westchester Railroad They run, I think I calculated it was about 100 trains a year, mostly on Saturdays and Sundays. This service would run Monday through Friday, so they would never interact with each other on the line. There's also consideration, potentially, there's a quarry for stone. We don't know if they would want to bring back freight service or not, but that could be an option at night. So we have different operating scenarios for the Westchester Railroad, which is B, for freight trains, which is A, and Metro, which is C. And again, everybody who's not running is locked out, securely from the line when the other is running. So equipment. So obviously, there's been a lot of back and forth on this one. So for a while, we were talking a lot about battery trains, the pop-up Metro. We went through a lot of conversations about that. There were concerns with whether it's got federal approval, which it doesn't. So we've shifted our plan to look more towards conventional passenger rail equipment. We know that there's a lot of equipment that's going to be coming out of service, specifically in the intercity passenger rail market right now. Over the next 5 years, Amtrak's going to be disposing of hundreds of coaches and probably hundreds of locomotives as well. So, obviously we don't want to acquire equipment before the line is ready. So we're focused on, fixing the track first. But this would be the sort of strategy we'd go with. Would try to get 2 locomotives and 4 coaches. Again, one train would be 1 locomotive and 2 coaches, and you'd have a backup set. So that's the current plan. And the hope is that we could get them donated just for the cost of getting it here, potentially. So we'll see how that goes, but that's the current thought. Okay, so budget. So this is the latest and greatest budget. And I was just checking with Rep. Pielli on this. So we put in an RCAP state level line item for 25 million, which is half of this 50. So that just for reference, 50 is the total cost for both capital and operating for the first 5 years. And we put in a request for half of that at the state level. So just the breakdown, obviously track is the biggest part of it. We want to get the line up from what's known as class 1 today, which is 15 miles per hour, up to potentially 60 miles per hour, which is class 3. So there's a lot of bridge work. There's a lot of rail and tie replacement that needs to happen. And you got to build the bridge to Wawa as well. So those are probably the biggest investments of the project. Station work, platform improvements, parking lots, lighting, signage. We're also allocating some money potentially for installing, positive train control, which we think may or may not be needed if we have just 1 train at a time. But we think if we want to increase service in the future, we might want to build that into the budget. And also upgrading all the grade crossings. I know that's something I've talked to Derek about with Westchester Railroad. That's already on their radar. If we could help them do that, that would be great. Kind of knock something off their list. But that's something that would be needed for Westchester Metro as well. So, and then equipment, we've allocated money for that, but the hope is that number could be much smaller if we can get them donated. We'll see. And again, we have a healthy contingency listed in there right now. On the operating side, we're estimating about $2 million a year for 5 years, and that's a subsidy. So there obviously is going to be revenue coming in from tickets, but not enough to cover the service. So we built out an estimate that currently says about $2 million a year, and we're constantly refining that. The only other thing I would mention is that we've done an analysis of diesel locomotives versus battery electric locomotives, and potentially if we could come up with the money to buy the battery locomotives, it would be far cheaper to operate them because the cost of diesel versus the cost of electricity. However, if electricity costs go up, which I know in the state of Pennsylvania may be happening, that could change that calculus. So we can continue. Okay, so updates. Obviously, everyone on council knows there was a big vote a couple months ago on the lease, and those have all been signed. We did a great job putting collective efforts into getting language everybody could agree to. And basically it has great language in there that is basically enabling language for future service. So that was a huge win for everybody. And we talked about the survey of businesses in the district, in the borough, and also the formation of the new nonprofit, which is still in the works in terms of standing up as an organization. And then we're working to seek state funds mostly through RCAP, But also I know there was a cycle on MTF, which I don't think we're going to make because we weren't quite ready for it. But we're tracking that. I think the last slide. Okay, so just, what are our requests at this time? Really, it's just vocal support and letters of support as they come along. I didn't have it listed on here, but there is a transportation priority projects list for Chester County that would be great to have the borough put this project in a letter to the county so that they recommend it. I know Phoenixville project is actually on that list. So we probably want to also just be on the list. So I can get that information to council for your review. And again, as things come up with RCAP, so I know that the current budget legislation for FY26 for the state has this project listed as a line item for that 25 million. I just looked it up this afternoon. So that's great news. Rep. PLE has made that happen for us. So we just want to track that. And obviously we're not going to have 25 million to match to that 25 million anytime soon. So we'll probably try to get a smaller amount to get a project together. The goal for the year is to try to get the first million. We'll see if we can achieve that. Last thing is just looking at smaller VPP grants, which we've done in the past, potentially this time for station planning. So try to get stakeholders together around what do they want at Market Street, what do they want at Wawa, what do they want at Cheney. So we think that could be a good, sort of one-off grants. So happy to open it up for questions.
Thank you. Ms. Shimoni.
I'll go. I did send you a preview of some of the questions that I had via email earlier today. But of course, I still have a lot of concerns about the value proposition for those. And is it enough to generate enough demand to create a sustainable business? I still question that. A couple of things that we don't have to hash out here, but just so for the record, so everybody kind of knows the feedback. First of all, the comparison slide that you have of travel times, I would recommend taking another look at that. It's not like the auto to Exton is not my experience. I said to you the other night, even I came to a Westchester Community Campus Committee meeting. I took a 5:07 train and I was in the building here at like 6:15. So that's less than 79 minutes. And even tonight, I took a 4:34 train and I was here in the parking lot. Bernie can attest to it. I was listening on the phone to a friend of mine who I was trying to get her finish up, which you probably will want me to do too. But nonetheless, it was like in the 60 some range, maybe 71, 72 minutes, but not quite the 79. I also question the timeline with the connection at Wawa. I'm not a huge fan as a commuter. I'm not a huge fan of a train to a train. Even in Philly, if I take the Amtrak train home, there's a free, you can take SEPTA and it's a free transfer from Market East or Suburban to get to 30th Street. I usually bypass that and just walk because the transfer sometimes doesn't match up exactly the way I want it to, right? My concern here is also that this train's not going to match up to the Wawa train, especially if you're only running one line with one backup, because the Wawa train, especially at rush hour, is like every 20 minutes. There's not an easy way to get that round trip to match up to the Wawa train. And you could leave a lot of riders stranded and not being a feasible way of doing things. So I think you guys need to go back and take a look at that. The other part of the value proposition is the cost. I know you're not trying to make money off of it, and you would assume that you'd be getting some kind of money from the state or whatever, to the $2 million. But you have to remember, like, who's your target? If you're targeting people that don't technically have a car, then they're probably looking for a value ride. And if the Wawa train's like $15 or something, I think it's $6.50 one way right now. So it's like $13. And then if our train to Wawa is like, I don't know, $2 to $5, you're looking at a $20 a day ride to get to the city, which, if I go out to Exton with my car, it's less than that, right? So that's something that it's worth a comparison and to add to your chart and really consider like how you're going to make that value proposition work if you're trying to get commuters, which I think to make a sustainable train, you need commuters. It can't just be people wanting to go into the city on the weekend for dinner, or people wanting to come to Westchester on the weekend for dinner, especially if, you know, God forbid, SEPTA starts to decrease their travel times on every rail. You know, people aren't going to be able to get out of the city, or they're not going to want to wait an hour when they're done dinner, wait an hour to go back to wherever they came from. So those are a couple things. I think your P&L in general, like, it would be good to understand what that is. Like, what, like you said, you know, you've got a 2 million, you know, deficit every year that you need grant money for. What's entailed? Like, how many people are running that train? And like, what is, I asked for this before, like, what's your business plan? So that's just a few things that I continue to question and look for and want to understand, because I still have, you know, my questions as whether or not this is something that we truly need in our borough. Like, a few people might have mentioned that it might be cool, but is it truly a need, or are there other travel components that would create that quality of life and really address the needs of our borough consumers? Once you get people driving to park their car, they can drive anywhere. So you're not really mitigating that issue. So that's another thing too. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention on the business plan front, on the ops plan, I didn't have a chance to, we do have one and I didn't refresh it. It was put together a year ago and I just didn't have time to get it done for this meeting, but it is on our radar. And yeah, I do want to fully refresh that, and it has a full breakdown of how we get to that 2 million deficit. And I just need to check all the numbers. So I know you actually pointed out a ridership number that I messed up in that plan last year. So that was a good note. And that sort of led me to fully do a refresh on it. So we're working through that.
Well, and thank you for being open to the feedback that I provide and everything, and trying to continue to improve your plan based off of some of the call outs. I mean, I don't know how many people that actually ride the train on the regular these days are on your committee, but hopefully knowing, you know, that I'm out there and I'll give you any feedback.
No, I mean, your daily experience is actually really good data for that analysis, right? Because it's your truth checking what that commute is really like. And what's interesting is that if you look at the train schedules of Paoli Thorndale and Wawa line, yeah, you can get a 51-minute sometimes, but sometimes you get a 62-minute, or, you know, so it's a mixed
depends
bag.
on if it's a local or if it's, so if you're looking at the commuters, you're going to want to look around that 5 o'clock, you know, 4:30 to 5:30, 6 o'clock range. And in the morning, you're going to want to look at, you know, even out here this way, people like my sister-in-law, I think she takes like a 6 something to get in because she comes from East Fallowfield. So, you know, like 7:30s usually, that's the one I ride. It's pretty busy. So like that time frame is where you want to do your comparison from a commuter standpoint.
Yeah, I think, and we can add a note on this, but I think what I did in the analysis was I chose essentially the most common trip time out of the train schedule, which it doesn't align necessarily with commute windows. But that's, you know, if you were to show up at any given point in the day, that's what you might get is sort of the most common time. So I think that's what's in there right now. But we can run other scenarios potentially for commuters specifically. Yeah.
So thank you for your persistence.
Sure.
So when you gave the first quarterly report, you know, some things have changed potentially with SEPTA and funding. Has that come into the conversation about what all of this looks like and in
terms of
scenarios that are being proposed?
In terms of what's going on with SEPTA right now and how this plays into that. So, I mean, the only thing I'd mention is that if the R5 really does go away, I think Westchester residents are going to be clamoring for service. I don't want to say that this project is, you know, only needed in that scenario. I don't think that's true, but I think it's going to make a much bigger dent in the accessibility that folks here have, because you're going to have to take Amtrak, right? And that's going to cost you more. Maybe Amtrak will put more trains on, maybe. But that could be a real gut check moment for transit out here, I think. I don't have any special knowledge about SEPTA's funding about what they're going to agree to in Harrisburg right now, but you know, I don't think Chris does either at the moment. But it's certainly, you know, my hope is that the fact that we've got a line item, we could potentially get in there and negotiate for some initial allocation of some kind as part of a bigger deal. That's what I'm going to push with Chris. Again, I don't think we don't have any match right now to go after big dollars, but I think if we could get something small, we could probably make something happen.
Thank you. Other comments?
I forgot the other thing that I said to you in email that I'll just say, the Wawa piece. Like, if you want to build a bridge, you know, you need to start building your bridges with Wawa leadership and getting yourselves in those conversations as well. It can't just be Westchester Borough. We got to, you know, you got to start talking to these other locations and not just Chris P, but the other borough councils or what township councils or
No,
whatever.
that's completely on our radar. We need to get down to Delaware County and talk to all the municipality folks down there and the leaders. Because I actually think that if you can get that bridge built, I think that's the first thing you should do, because you could, I mean, not that you want to, but you could run a slow train to that platform, a couple trains a day if you had the bridge. So I actually think that's the most important part of the project right now.
One of the things that so Mr. McCoy asked the question I had around SEPTA, because I think that's really valid and very real. So I would be really interested in understanding, you know, the funding. I understand you said there's a line item. And the other question I had was related to the other municipalities that this rail affects. And I'd like to see in the next quarterly report where they are on this, whether they support it, whether they're willing to entertain it, whether they're, you know, against it. I think that would be valuable input to our plan.
I think that's great. We do want to have updated letters of support from each municipality along the line. So that's a good goal, 3 months out. Yep.
Other comments, questions?
No, I mean, I was encouraging the committee to come quarterly, because hearing from them once a year, it's very hard to remember where they were. I appreciate you coming and sharing your updates. You have made some progress.
Yep.
This is a very slow, hard thing to do. I think given the facts on the table with SEPTA and the potential for losing regional rail in the area, we have to have some contingency in place. I feel like even though this isn't perfect, at least we're trying something here. And I did have one question also. In terms of like operating the rail, have you identified a few operators that if we did end up with assets, whether they're donated, we ended up with funding and we built the bridge, we restored the rail from class 1 to, what was it again, class 3?
1 to 3.
1 to 3. If we get there, who's going to run it? I think that would be very, very helpful, at least to have some insight. Because it's not you.
No.
And, you know.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Right. So I think, you know, some sense of, okay, we have, everything's here, like all the infrastructure is here, now who's going to run it? I think that would be really helpful if we have some idea of what that would look like.
Yeah,
and maybe even comparing it to New Jersey Transit and some of their similar operations where they're going from one operator to another.
So there are third-party operators. For example, there's a company called Herzog and there's a company called Keolis. So Keolis, I think, operates all of MBTA's commuter rail service in Boston. So that's an example of just a private third-party firm that can come in and do the whole operation, do all the maintenance, do all the operations, ticketing, everything. It's still SEPTA's property, so it'll be interesting to see. They may choose to bid as well, because I don't know, because unions may ask for that. I don't know how that's going to go. We're open to whatever people want to do and whatever works. So it could go, I could see it going down the, you know, SEPTA staff route, because it's not going to require that many staff, 3 or 4 maybe, or it could go a third party. So there's definitely both of those options out there. Yeah.
Other comments? Just one. I'm curious, now that Wawa has been, you know, in place as a station there, has there been any development that has been occurred around it because of the presence of the station?
Yeah, I mean, so transit-oriented developments are always chicken or egg. You don't know which one came first, but there's huge stuff that they built up on the hill right above the station there, and I think it came along along similar timing. So, and yeah, just hearing about it, obviously with the bid expanding in this direction towards the Market Street kind of area and the large buildings being talked about in this part of the town, I think it's, you know, a similar trend is maybe happening, even on its own, right, without the service.
Thank you. Are there any public comments or questions? Yes.
I'll make a public comment. I am a member of the committee, but I don't speak for the committee. I speak for myself. I think it's very important.
If you would just say your name and
Jim Sargent, 321 South Walnut Street. I've been a resident since 1979 of Chester County, and I've commuted into Philadelphia and to New York on public transit since 1979. I perhaps am the only person present who actually rode the SEPTA train from Westchester to Philadelphia back before it closed. I'm perhaps the only person here who has ridden the 104 bus to and from Philadelphia. Well, if you are, you're brave, because I wouldn't allow my wife or my daughter to ride that bus, connect at 69th Street and go into Center City. It's miserable and it's dangerous. I've ridden the 135 bus and connected to the train in Exton. It's fraught because the bus runs often 30 minutes behind schedule, so you could miss your train. I think you have to understand, Councilmember Simone, that your comments are very privileged. Not everybody has a car. Not everybody has the ability to park their car in Exton and retrieve it in the evening or the next day or the next day. What the rail service potentially provides is a two-way channel for people to come to Westchester to provide service jobs with populations, and people to go to Philadelphia. Remember that there is a substantial population in Westchester, including myself and my wife and my children, who would take the train, walk to the train from their residences in Westchester. You can go from Westchester theoretically to Wawa, connect. That's a bit of a challenge for some. You could connect, go into Philadelphia, take the train to the airport, go anywhere in the world for however long you want to go without worrying about your connection back to your home in Westchester. The same is true with the Northeast Corridor. I commute regularly to New York, as do some of my neighbors. I commute regularly to Philadelphia. My preference is to go by public transit. I go to federal court, I go to state court in Philadelphia, I go to court in Media. I was there this morning. If I'd had a train, I would have taken the train to the court in Media. And coincidentally, the judge I was before, who's a senior judge in Delaware County, assured me that the train service was going to be restored on the Westchester Media line, because apparently he heard that from Delaware County. It's the enlightened way of traveling. Even if it takes me 4 hours to go from Westchester to New York on public transit, I can use my computer, I can use my cell phone as a hotspot, I can, engage in work, I can be productive that whole period of time, much better than driving, although that would obviously be an option. But so I would warn council about putting too much emphasis on anecdotal evidence. One of the reasons we wanted so much to establish this service was to prove to SEPTA that it was a viable service. So it's kind of a test case, and we're trying to get the funding together. I personally created the 501c3s. I know some people on council disparaged that effort and thought it was eroding the power of borough council. I did that as a generous offer, as a person who is a longtime resident of Chester County, not to undermine the authority of the board, but to show my commitment to this project. And those are out there, those 501c3 and 501c4s, as vessels for any kind of funding or generosity that's available around the country, whether it's train sets or it's funding. They're available to this borough, and they're freely given. There are no strings attached. It's perhaps another way of getting the funding in place, which I think is really important to make this project viable. I will tell you, I think it's an embarrassment that Westchester The only county seat in southeast Pennsylvania does not have rail service. Every other county seat has rail service. I think it's an embarrassment that the United States has put so little effort in maintaining public transit. And we've got to change that. You know, you go out on 202, south, north, it's, you know, a quagmire of traffic. We've got to come up with alternatives if we're going to, you know, prosper as a society. And that's my belief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to respond to a couple of things. I agree. Brian, I know, I'll talk for a little bit. Don't worry. We get, I know you're a little frustrated. It's okay. You are correct. I am privileged. I am privileged that I have a job that is flexible, that if I arrive late when the train runs late or has a tree or all of these things, they will not fire me. I am privileged that they let me leave early. They let me take a 4:30 train instead of working 9 to 5. I can cut out early. I am privileged because I'm paid enough. Trains are expensive. The trains are very expensive right now. And so I can afford to take the train. These are concerns why I'm not 100% certain that your business proposition serves the people that you're thinking you want to serve, people that cannot afford a car, people that have hourly jobs that have to be there on time, and if they're not, they get fired because there's a construct of a train to a train that takes extra long time. If you're looking for people that want to just go to New York sometimes, yeah, maybe they'll take that roundabout way. I mean, to get there, sure. But I'm talking about a viable business plan that'll allow it to run. And what I'm trying to push you guys into, I'm not against the idea of a train. I'm against the idea of not having a viable business plan. And that's where I struggle right now. I don't see a business plan that works, that truly gets you the ridership that you're looking for to create something sustainable. So yes, you can call my construct privilege because I have a car and all of these things, although you guys are putting, you're thinking that you're going to put, you know, parking spaces in there. So you're expecting people to drive there to get to your levels. So then that's another question. Why would they drive there versus driving to some of the other locations and things like that? So just keep that in mind. I want you to take the spirit of my comments and try to make your plan better as opposed to thinking that it's all about negativity. Because if you're going to have a plan, you got to have a good one. You can't just throw a plan out there and because you think it should happen, it should work. You got to have something that's sustainable, that's going to work, that you're not going to spend $50 million and it'll last for half a year because it's not the right thing for our borough, because there are a lot of good things that our borough needs. And whether it's government money or any other money, you know, it could be diverted to those if they are better supporting the needs of our borough residents and even a little bit beyond.
To respond briefly, frankly, I've heard a lot of talk about how public transit isn't used. Every Amtrak train that I've taken from Exton to New York has been packed. Every train that I've taken, SEPTA train from Exton to Philadelphia, gets packed. I've seen New Jersey transit trains. They're totally packed, and they're not packed by you or me. They're packed with people who are obviously lower income, who are using those as a vital way to get to jobs or to get to whatever they need to in major metropolitan areas. So I don't believe that there's an issue about getting ridership. I think we have to demonstrate it. It's not a business. It's not a for-profit business. It's public transit. You have to make it available and see what happens. And there is a certain amount of risk to it. It's not like sending up a trial balloon as to how many people are going to order some product on Amazon. It's making available a service and seeing how much it will attract people who have no alternative but to go back and forth in public transit. And there are still buses being run. And the people who sit at, you know, the corner of Gay Street and High Street when the bus is 30 minutes late and they are trying to get to a job are really desperate because they don't have any alternative. I can tell you that because I've seen them many, many times. So I think we have to take some risk in this proposition. It's not a risk that is unsustainable, and it's not a risk that is really ridiculous. It's something that is making a service available, which is what government does, you know? And there may not be a business plan that justifies taking that risk, but I think you have to believe in something. And I believe in public transit, among other things. It's a really important thing which we lack in our society.
Thank you. Okay. Additional comments or questions from public? Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll move on to new business. Appointment to the Westchester Borough Planning Commission, the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Quentin Borough to the Planning Commission.
I will second that.
Okay, Mr. Metrick, please call the question.
Ms. Dorsey? Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Vaccaro?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Ms. Shimoni?
No.
And Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
That's 5-2, yes.
So we had one individual, Brandon, who expressed interest in the Transportation Advisory Committee. So we can move that forward if we had a motion.
I'll move for
I'll-
Brandon.
I'll second that.
Mr. Metrick, please call the question.
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Vaccaro?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Ms. Shimoni?
Yes.
And Mr. McCoy?
Yes. Okay, thank you. We will move on to old business. We have a few discussion items. First one being the motion to approve special event parking fees policy for the town center special events.
I did reach out to John O'Brien, who is still here. Thank you, John. And Ramsey did as well. And he expressed that he was not terribly concerned about the businesses and the employees beyond the question if the permit holders would be allowed to access the parking during the hours of their permit, and they would be. So that is not an issue. His concern is more about he still wants the events funded, which is we're going to take care of that just in a different way. So that is my comment.
Quick question. I know there was concern 2 events are on Sunday.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on
Sorry,
that?
yes, I forgot to talk about that. The church parking on Sunday, we will have a way of communicating, and I do like the month ahead of time because it's easy enough. We know when the events are coming. So a month ahead of time, we will communicate with the churches about that event, and we will provide permits for their people who are parking during the church activity. And if they stay beyond, they will be charged the parking just like anybody else would. So that's taken care of.
Could I ask a question? Currently, it states that it's just the flat lots. Can we extend that to, in the policy, I believe it just references the lots themselves, but not the parking garages. So I think that was the big concern with Sundays. Says events take place on Sundays for church parking neighboring lots with use.
Oh,
Can we extend that to the parking garages?
I don't see why not. I missed.
I'm reading it. It says lots though. So I was just wondering if we could add
Yeah, it
garages.
It does, but I think it's covered by the first paragraph stating that globally, well, I guess it's that second paragraph, at all borough-owned garages and surface lots. And then I think it's making a specific comment about Sundays and churches have some churches have a surface lot next to or near them. So I think
It's just that maybe it's not clear. Maybe we could just clear it up a little bit because I got a lot of comments about this, concerns. So if we could just put the garage part in the church section on Sundays, maybe that would add clarity.
I am fine with that. I don't think there's a problem. I honestly feel like the way that the parking is assessed and ticketed and whatnot, it's sort of, we've unified everything to the point where I don't think it will be, I think it will be harder to separate them. Do you know, like in practice, I think it will be more difficult to, oh, perhaps not. Maybe I'm misspeaking. Do you have any thoughts on the borough side if the garages would be able to do a waiver for the churches in the mornings?
I wonder if, I know there's been some concern about the 8 AM start for all the events. Could we sort of go about that by saying, would start at, 1 o'clock,
Some of the events,
the special events instead of 8
some of the special events start at 12 or 11, and or 12 or 1, and I just had this in front of me. There are special events that have much earlier start times, and those, what we saw, what did we saw last night, something with a revenue breakdown that clearly showed the Christmas parade, people were thoroughly taking advantage of early arrival times.
even before 12.
I don't know what time. It was just very clear that they were avoiding the special event fees, and therefore the borough was not making the money that we could then indirectly give back to the event.
Ms. Vaquero, what about starting for those two events on Sunday at noon?
What are the two events on Sunday?
That would be the chili cook-off and the restaurant festival.
Those have earlier start times.
Okay.
Those are not evening events. Like the Christmas parade is an evening event.
Right. But my question here is regarding the churches that could potentially use the garages, right?
Okay, Ramsey's talking to me. She doesn't know how they could do that for the garages. She can speak to the management company. They collect revenue when you enter the garage during the special events. I'm not sure if they're able to also do that at the time of exit for an overstay, meaning waivers for the churchgoers.
So if I could make a motion to table this and.
We can table it.
Take this back to committee for
Yes,
further study.
let's do that.
Can I ask one question though? Because we originally started talking about the $20 fee, and I think we all agree to that.
Correct.
And then the policy came, and then I don't think I didn't take a close enough look. I got some people brought this to my attention, especially on Sundays, potentially on Friday mornings for commerce. If somebody's just doing a quick errand, but on the same day of Christmas parade, that event starts at 8 o'clock. And I hate to say it, but I'm thinking about Chris Curtin right now, and his store, and people paying a $20 event fee for, a quick visit to one of the stores. And I would quickly, if it was me, I would just turn around and go back home.
So we talked a little bit about this. I don't know if it was last week or last night, but you have the option to park on the street and use a meter versus a lot. If you want to avoid the $20 fee, don't park in a lot or the garage. Park on the street.
Yeah, Chris Curtin's issue was his employees who do park in the garage, and he has permits for them to
I'm
do
thinking
that.
of the customers
The
though.
customers park on the street for the most part, especially for quick stop-ins.
So where's the majority of our parking though? On the street, in the garages, in the lots? I mean, you're limiting the options
We are,
starting at 8 AM.
we are.
So those street spots are going to fill up pretty quickly. Where's the overflow going to go?
In the garage
And they're going to have to pay an event fee, even if it's 10 AM.
for the 5 events that we're talking
I
about.
just don't agree with that.
Yeah, it's 5 events.
Miss, did you table it?
We did.
Motion.
No one second, okay. Okay, Ms. Vaccaro, the problem with parking inside the garages, the elevated garages, is trying to get out. Unless we put a
Right.
barcode on the church pass for their windshield, we have to put a barcode on there so they can exit the elevated parking garages.
Right.
Flat lots, they just drive away. So I guess the individual people that are going to be parking in the parking garages of the churches, they're going to have to either ask whether am I going to park in a flat lot or I'm going to park in an elevated garage because you can't get out.
I think
So
if that's possible, if Ramsey can work with the management company, we just print out things that have a QR code or, and it doesn't matter where you park.
As we were talking, as Mr. Travis was bringing it up, people, going to church and wanting to leave in the elevated garages, like Bicentennial Garage, because his church is directly across the street, and may use that once the lot's full. In order to get out of there, we have to keep in mind that the barcode would be on probably all the passes for the
Right.
church. That way there, you don't discriminate one way or the other.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, so they can get out.
right. I'm okay with this table.
Okay, thank you. We will move that back to Parking Committee for August. Okay, next we have a motion to schedule a public hearing on August 20th, 2025 at 6:30 PM to consider amendment to Chapter 37, Animals, creating a new article prohibiting sale of cats, dogs, and rabbits in retail stores.
I think Mr. Flynn had a question last night whether a breeder could sell cats, dogs, and rabbits in a pet store in Westchester, and that if we prohibited that, we were prohibiting free enterprise. We did check with the solicitor, and she confirmed that no dogs, cats, or rabbits would be able to be sold in any retail store with this ordinance.
Well, I'll add to that because, and I sent it to Bernie, I sent it to you. I apologize. I sent it to, Sunshine Law, number of people. Oh, shoot. The woman that was here last night, Ariel, thank you. She sent a follow-up as well that said, if a breeder wants to go to a store and sell the animal, the pet, they can do that. It's just that the store specifically can't sell the pet. So a pet could, if a breeder really wanted to, a local breeder could come into Westchester and say, I want to be able to have an event every so often and sell some pets at your store. And the pet owner, the store owner could allow them to do that, it sounds like. So I don't know your thought there.
I agree with that. And it's specifically dogs. It's not rabbits, cats, and elephants. It's basically dogs that are being bred by professional breeders that have a license with the United States Department of Agriculture, and they're licensed by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to do business as such. So that would allow for free enterprise. And as Kristen said, that if the breeder meets all those criteria, and they should probably have to file it with the borough if they're going to ever do that, then we would allow it. Yeah. So, but as Ariel said, the chances of slim or none of a professional breeder just breeding very good, high quality pets would probably not do that type of stuff. But I don't think we should lock out somebody that wants to do it. But we should put enough hurdles in their way that, that they have to be clarified and cleared. So.
Mr. Metzger, I have a question. Has the solicitor reviewed the ordinance for tie-in to the whole chapter and everything else? So it's good to go.
Yeah, it's good to go insofar as it would fit in this form that you see into our chapter 37. Yeah.
So the motion here would be to schedule the public hearing So
Make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the ordinance as stated.
we have a
I'll
second.
second it.
Thank you. Mr. Metric, please call the question.
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn? Ms. Vaccaro?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Ms. Shimoni?
Yes.
And Ms. McCoy?
Yes. Okay, next we have motion to approve budget modification or expense and revenue for a capital project, Goose Creek Green Public Works and Matlack Street Rain Garden Stormwater Project. Rolls right off the tongue. And approval of final certification of payment number 3 with a change order in the amount of 73,210. I want to say first that we had a lot of discussion last night, good discussion about process, design, planning. However, I want to take the specific motion to approve the payment on its own, and then I want to make motions to move 2 different topics to committee to next month. So let's focus on the first motion, which is the payment. Discussion.
Mr. McCoy,
Yes.
as you mentioned, last night, we discussed the change order and the responsibilities of the change order and the funding. I believe that after listening to what we discussed last night, there are a lot of moving parts when we start to take money from other entities. I still believe that the purchasing policy is the most paramount thing that every department has to follow. But I believe, after listening to everybody last night, there are 4 points of interest when it comes to exercising a grant. We have a grant manager who secures the grant for us. We have engineers who develop the plan and the process. We have production managers and project managers that run the jobs. And then, of course, at last, we have the general contractor that does the job. Last night, we had a lot of conversations about who was responsible, who was not responsible, why things slipped through the cracks. Tonight, I'd like to focus on just one topic, and maybe Mr. Metric or Mr. Williams would be happy to help us, because I'm assuming, since Mr. Williams gets us the grants, I'm trying to figure out, after the grant funding is acquired and the projects begin, what is the main focus of the grant manager? Now, I wrote down 4 topics, and I could be wrong or I could be right. The 4 topics I think the grant manager should be responsible for, and I could be off base. This is the way I'm looking at it, is to monitor the projects and attend production meetings, verify progress reports, finalize payment sign-offs, and close out the projects. If that's not the topic or the responsibility of the grant manager, this was what went south. Who's the responsibility lie with? So, Mr. Metric, do you want to help with this, or our grant manager, Mr. Williams?
I can speak to that. I think that we don't construct it the way you just constructed it in your comment, but hopefully my response covers the bases. So at the planning and development stage, there's a team that talks about, well, what project are we going to put into next year's budget? What project are we going to invest time and effort into generating a concept? And the concept usually is a small investment. It's usually $4,000 or $5,000. And you'll see us talking about that like in the next year's capital plan. We have to look ahead 5 years. So we should be giving you a preview of what we're thinking about, what's coming down the road. And we need budget dollars to spend on that concept. Once we've developed a concept and we agree roughly about what it is we want to do, and the group that agrees to that is a departmental director, the borough manager, sometimes even the finance director is involved in that conversation if it involves lending. And then we go out and play matchmaker. We try and find a grant program that matches our needs, and we work with our engineer, Remington Vernick, to find a good match with that. And Will's very involved in that, and Will's very good at writing grant applications. And then we submit a grant application and we wait. Usually by the time we hear back from the grantor, it's time to start constructing the project. We're into the next year's budget cycle. At that point, we are getting authorization from you all, hopefully with some grant dollars to put towards it to reduce the borough's capital and general fund obligations to actually build the thing. We are finding money to build it, and we're going to do it in that coming year. Then we go through the final design process and we bid that. That's when the engineer comes in, is doing a lot of work to do the final design. Usually it's the same engineer who did the concept for us. And then at that point, when we are bidding it, I assign a project manager. Largely, since he has the most experience doing this kind of work, Don Edwards is an asset for that kind of role. That's the person who's going to manage the bid process for the borough, make sure the contractor and the engineer stay on task. So that project manager then keeps an eye on the project and then reports back to our monthly meeting group where we're talking about how the project is progressing and developing. Now, you commented about grants. Most grants, with rare exceptions, are reimbursement style grants. So you do the project, and then once it's complete and done, and you can present an affidavit of payment and show them nice pictures of a completed project, you submit requests for reimbursement. And that's where the grant manager will, in this case, would come back into the picture and say, hey, were we doing a good job of keeping track of all of our invoicing? And we talk about this every month as a team. Are we recording the invoices? Can we find them? Because you have to have really good records to submit requests for reimbursements. And we used to chase around stuff. We didn't know where invoices were, and that's much better organized now. And then we apply for reimbursement, and usually there's waiting that happens there. And then sometimes it's 90 days, 120 days after we've applied for reimbursement that we get our money back. Does that help?
Yeah, you touched on at the end exactly what the grant manager's job is to collect all the information from the various aspects of the job, wrap it up, put a ribbon on it, and submit it to the grantor. That's what I thought I heard you say.
There's a subtle difference I want to correct. The project managers, since they are working most closely with the project on a day-to-day basis, knows what the sort of payment should be. So they're the ones grabbing the invoices, making sure they're filed in our share file system. So it's a subtle difference from what you just said. The project manager is the one who's tracking the transactions that are happening so that the grant manager can come in at the end, sweep up the information they need to process the grant applications. But that person's in the room on our monthly meets as well and hearing about how the project is progressing as well, along with the finance director, me, and all the departmental directors that have capital projects.
Mr. Metrick, what about hiring someone that just does procurement? Wouldn't that solve a lot of these issues?
It's something I've thought about as a position that might live in finance, but it's at this point, it's an idea. We haven't explored it further, but that's about where we are with that. It's not. I'm not hearing that idea for the first time. Like, do we need somebody who aids with procurement? What would that person do? We've tossed that idea around, but we haven't progressed further with that. I can't tell you if it's a good or bad idea.
I like that idea, but I want to bring this back to the question here. I think that we need to move forward with approving this so that we can finish this job because it matters. There were failures, there were mistakes, there were things that shouldn't have happened, but we need to deal with this now. And are we going to stop this and hold this up? Or are we going to move forward? I would like to make a motion to approve this.
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Metrick, please call the question.
Travis. Ms. Dorsey.
No.
Mr. Flynn.
No.
Ms. Vaccaro.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Travis.
Yes.
Ms. Shimoni.
Yes.
And Mr. McCoy.
Yes. So as a follow-up to this, and I think to what Bernie is talking about, and Mr. McGinnis proposed a different, should we hire a procurement person? I'd like to make a motion that we put to the committee, two committees, one to the Public Works Committee to study the planning design process, including, whether it's grants, et cetera, how it's done, how can we improve it? And second, to the Finance Committee to look at how we approve change orders, how we should do it for these capital projects, and give some recommendations for, belts and suspenders, more checks and balances if needed.
I'm in agreement with that. I think that's a very good idea. And I think the one idea was discussed yesterday, what Remington Burnick is doing is putting an extra 10% into the bid. The reason being is you're going to have these costs are going through the roof, 50% copper tariff. Tariff's going to be in Mexico and Canada August 1st. And that's a lot of, ways. I mean, you're going to have to figure out your projects moving forward. I don't know how the hell you're going to do that. So I'm complete agreement.
It makes a lot of sense. That's why you're not seeing a lot of the buildings going up in the borough right now, because of force majeure. You could do your design and your purchasing of 2x4s, and you basically said, I'm going to pay 69 cents for a 2x4. And then all of a sudden coming into Canada, it's $2.95. And that just blows your budget completely out of whack. So I don't blame the Eli Kahns or the Pete Stazes or anybody else that has not started building, because there's so much uncertainty. You can't afford to build something that that you can't afford. So and we don't want to see empty shells sitting around. But for our sake, I think we need to work together with finance and public works to get it done.
Mr. Manager, do we need to do anything formally for that? Do we need a second, or can we just, no? Okay, great. All right, so next we have approved the July 16, 2025 consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Metric, please call the question.
Ms. Dorsey.
Yes.
Mr. Flynn.
Yes.
Ms. Vaccaro.
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis.
Yes.
Mr. Travis.
Yes.
Ms. Shimoni.
Yes.
And Mr. McCoy.
Yes. Thank you very much. We will adjourn at 8:41. Oh,
No
sorry.
other business?
Business. Is there any other business? Great, thank you. We are adjourned.